feet, go to 1 Samuel chapter 16. 1 Samuel chapter 16. And I want to illuminate for our understanding just one verse. And that verse is verse number 7. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things man looks at. Man looks at the outer appearance, but it is God who looks at the heart. If you're thankful for that, give God glory even now. You may be seated in the presence of the Lord. I want to preach today using as a subject, I'm so hood. I'm not so hood. Look at the person beside you and tell them, Pastor preaching about you today. Pastor's preaching about you today. I'm so hood. Gumshoe investigative reporter Gerald Riviera, born in Brooklyn to biracial parentage, Puerto Rican and Jewish. After graduating from law school in the University of Pennsylvania, Gerald spent a stint of time working in the New York Police Department. He forsook that career and went into journalism. He maintained his law practice with one client. The one client that Gerald Riviera represented was the Young Lords, a group of Hispanic radicals that took a church hostage in Chicago, shot up the pastor and his wife, and left them dead in the sanctuary. He became not just their lawyer, but the spokesperson for the group. And while he was articulating the needs and the perspective of the Young Lords in 1969, a producer from ABC television saw that he was articulate and well-spoken and offered him a job to be an investigative reporter. They said to him, we got one problem. We've got blacks on television, but we don't have any Latinos. Your name does not sound Hispanic enough. So ABC television changed his name from Gerald to Geraldo so that he could embrace more of a Spanish background. Although Geraldo or Gerald grew up Jewish, went through a bar mitzvah, and is completely immersed in his synagogue, for the sake of securing a minority job, he changed his name. His entire journalistic career has been jaded. The highlight was only in 1977. It was Gerald Riviera who uncovered the real reason why Elvis Presley died. The original press report said that he had a heart attack, but Geraldo launched an investigation to discover that Elvis Presley had in fact OD'd. In 1986, he took 3 hours of live television time to break into Al Capone's empty vault, promising America that he would find the hidden drug money, only to discover empty beer bottles. In 2001, he went over to Iraq because he could not get a job stationary and began being a field reporter for ABC. And he reported that he had witnessed friendly fire. The Pentagon investigated, trying to figure out how he was that close to the front line. And after investigation, they discovered that Geraldo was 300 miles away and had misappropriated his report. In 2003, he is now stationed in Iraq. And while stationed in Iraq in a live telecast, he begins to draw a diagram to show millions of Americans where the next attack from U.S. troops was going to be levied. The Pentagon immediately shut him down because he recklessly endangered the lives of our sons and daughters who were serving overseas. It is important to know in 2005, the New York Times reported that at the height of Hurricane Katrina, Geraldo Rivera pushed an aid worker out of the way so that he could be seen helping a black woman come out of the flood. Presently, in case you do not know, Geraldo Rivera is not actively on television, but runs a radio program from 10 to 12. Many of you are saying, I've not heard of it. I didn't know he was on the air. It is because he is sandwiched between two psychopathic, degenerate colleagues. He comes after Don Imus and right before Rush Limbaugh. So it comes as no surprise that he would utter such reckless remarks on national television that all dark-skinned males, both black and Hispanic, should never wear hoods outside of the house because it makes you an automatic suspect. He declares that every footage of a criminal that you've ever seen on television, robbing a 7-Eleven, a convenience store, or a gas station, has a hood on it. And because they are wearing a hood, it immediately implicates them into being a hood. He declared without ever wincing or in fact stuttering that he believed that this young man was murdered not just because of Zimmerman's zealousness, but because he had on a hood. That when black men wear hoods, Geraldo argues, it makes them culpable to their own crimes of hate. The question I need to ask Mr. Gerald Rivera, since it is that you have 3 degrees, I want to know, did the 10 million black men who died on the Middle Passage, did they have hoods on? I'd like to discover when Medgar Evers was gunned down in his own driveway in Jackson, Mississippi, did he have a hood on? When Martin Luther King Jr. was on the balcony of the Lorraine Hotel and was in fact supporting the sanitation workers, did he have a hood on? When Emmett Till just looked at a white woman in a store and found himself killed, did he have a hood on? When black men in Baltimore, D.C. and Newark, New Jersey are pulled over for racial profiling, driving while black, did most of us have hoods on? For him to argue, for you as a black man or Latino man to become a suspect or to be seen as suspicious means you have a hood, suggests that your clothing is in fact a contributor to your victimization. If that is true, then we have to rewrite the Bible. And in rewriting the Bible, we've got to try to discover what then happened. Because maybe, ladies and gentlemen, we did not trace the lineage and the DNA of Geraldo Rivera far enough back. Maybe we stopped at his Jewish bloodline and his Puerto Rican bloodline and do not realize that Geraldo really can be found back in the Bible. Where do we find him? Well, there was a young man by the name of Joseph, and Joseph had a dream. And not only did Joseph have a dream, but his father put a multicolored robe on him and said, go check on your brothers. He's going to go check on his brothers, and the brothers then come into collusion with themselves and says, behold, the dreamer cometh. They were able to identify him, hear me, because of the robe he had on. That then suggests that maybe Geraldo is a brother of Joseph. That will suggest that you can in fact be victimized by your own family based off of what you have on. Now, it is in fact somewhat wearisome and bothersome for me that a man who comes through 2 different lineages of oppression, whether we want to take the Jewish side of him or the Hispanic side of him, both of them know what it's like to be oppressed. But I'll stick for just this moment with the Jewish side of him, because it is not in fact lost on us that the Jewish community runs multimedia in America. If in fact you have given 5 erroneous reports on television that have been documented and exposed, how are you still on the air? It speaks to the deep-seated dark web of deception that is perpetuated, here it is, when an ethnicity sticks with each other even if they're wrong. Y'all don't like this in here. Can you imagine what would be the repercussions of a black journalist to report something that was out of order, that was found to be untrue, and to danger U.S. troops in the middle of warfare? But no, we don't say anything about that, and so I'll pause and leave that alone. He further argues that he warned his own son, Cruz Riviera, that he should not, in fact, go outside with a hoodie on. Geraldo, I got to stop you because your son grew up in the synagogue in Manhattan, and when he went through the synagogue in Manhattan and had the bar mitzvah, in which hundreds of thousands of dollars were given to him at 12 years old, he was then received as a Jewish man at 12. So the critical question I've got to ask thinking black Americans who were in this sanctuary, what do you think would have been the fallout and the repercussions if it was a 17-year-old Jewish boy who was shot down by a black man? Y'all ain't talking back to me. There would not be a 30-day window of investigation. We wouldn't be signing any petitions. We wouldn't be marching in Sanford, Florida. That brother would be under the jail without the possibility of parole. We came as a unified force to tell America, with your traces of racism, our children count too. Our children matter too. Our children are significant too. And we are tired of you treating our children like second-class citizens, as if they don't matter, as if they have no value, as if they have no worth. It is not just TrevOn, because TrevOn represents every child in the black community. And if today you stand with our children, I want America to hear you loud and clear that we are not going to let another one of our children die of oppression. Dr. King had a dream that one day we would come to the place that we would not be judged based off of the color of our skin, but rather on the content of our character. Dr. King had no idea in 1963 that the issue would be about wardrobe, about what it is that you wear. He had no idea. He thought it would just be about race and ethnicity. He didn't know we would be stereotyped because of what it is that we got from models and from Foot Locker. If in fact every black man with a hood is a thug, every white man in a suit is a thief from Wall Street. If we gonna carry the stereotype, we gonna have to press it all the way around. You gonna have to take some of this, because some of the biggest thugs ain't in jail. They are living off of the wages that they stole. Critical question that we gotta ask the Justice Department and the FBI and the state prosecutors: how within the hour do you arrest somebody for throwing flour on Kim Kardashian? But this crazed lunatic who couldn't get a job, you let him walk around free without any license to be a police. If, in fact, that's too much for you, I got to ask you, America, what is your value of our children that you will put Michael Vick in jail over a dog? God, I can't hear nobody, and he wasn't even at the fight. But you'll let a white man go free after shooting one of our babies? Something has got to be answered for that. What if, as black Americans, we adopted the same kind of jaded perspective that Geraldo Rivera espouses? That every black and Latino man with a hood is a thug. Should we then assume that every white man in a hood is going to burn a cross, hang our men, rape our women, burn our churches, and in fact keep us in oppression? Our problem, and please blame it on us, we gave you the benefit of the doubt. we assumed y'all had matured and changed, and that you all had developed. Now that our brother is your president and your general, we thought you would recognize who it is you dealing with, that we are not any weaklings who are going to roll over and play dead, but we got the spirit of Maya Angelou. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies, but still, like dust, I'll rise, I'll rise, I'll rise. And I'm preaching to some people in the room. There were some people that didn't think you were going to make it, didn't think you would graduate, didn't think you would make a difference, didn't think that you would hold a job, but you ought to be shouting in the face of every racist that tried to kill your ancestors, we're still here.